celebrating and showcasing extraordinary people who are doing incredible things to make our world a better place. This is Close-Up Television. I'm your host, Jim Masters, and thanks so much for joining us. On today's episode, we celebrate Dr. Melissa Corley Carter, the Barefoot Dancing Rocket Scientist, big dream breakthrough coach, and epic life speaker. She takes big dreamers from status quo to extraordinary. An actual rocket scientist and 7 continents marathoner, Melissa is no stranger to dreaming big. Her dynamic range of life experiences brings a unique blend of art and science to her work. With her superpowers of shifting perspective and celebrating your awesomeness and reflecting your greatness back to you, Melissa can help you get out of your own way and turn your dreams into reality. Melissa is the author and photographer of the award-winning coffee table book, Running the World, Marathon Memoirs from the 7 Continents. In her book, she shares her epic outer journey across the continents and her epic inner journey of recovering from shattered dreams and realigning her life with powerful purpose. Melissa is also a certified quantum human design specialist, quantum alignment system practitioner, and energy leadership index master practitioner. She loves helping people reconnect with their true selves and remember how powerful, unique, and awesome they really are. Now, to learn more about the incredible work of this inspirational force of nature, Melissa joins me in the Close-Up Television studio for this exclusive interview. Melissa, welcome to Close-Up Television. Thanks for coming to the studio from Northern Virginia. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here.
We did the radio show, and that was absolutely fascinating. And so much so, I said, we've got to come to the television studio and do a full-on segment with her. I was so blown away and taken back by your story. I just think it's so amazing. You're a true source of inspiration. I mentioned in the introduction some of the background, but I'd love to dig in a little bit deeper. Tell us about the origins of all of this desire to want to go into coaching and everything that sort of led up to that for you.
Sure, absolutely. You know, it's funny, I never imagined myself as a coach. I didn't think I was going to be a coach when I was little. I actually spent 20 years wanting to be an astronaut. And, you know, in 5th grade, an astronaut came and talked to my class, and I was hooked. From then on, that was my path, and I followed it. It was just so inspiring, and so I did all the math and science. I got engineering degrees in college. I joined the Air Force. I got commissioned as an officer. And I had always had bad eyesight, so I knew that my eyesight was not qualified, but I trusted in the universe that eventually they would start allowing surgery. So, and they did, and then I got laser surgery in 2008, I think, 2009. And so the first time I was actually qualified to apply to be an astronaut was in 2012, the class of 2012. So I applied, put in, hit the apply button. It was one of the most exciting moments of just thinking, oh my gosh, this is it. This is really it. Yeah, absolutely. And I actually found out that my eyesight before I got LASIK was so bad that I was disqualified anyway. So for me, that was a dark night of the soul. It was a soul-crushing moment, and I literally didn't know what to do next. I had really wrapped up so much of my identity in becoming an astronaut. Yeah. Had told everyone I'd ever met that I wanted to be an astronaut. They all said they could see me doing it. And I literally didn't know who I would be or what I would do without that. So I was a bit adrift at that point, and I was still in the Air Force, and so I was going places. You know, it didn't look to the outside world like anything had changed. I was on the fast track. I was doing really well, but internally, I had sort of lost my direction. Yeah, you really had your heart set on that. So what happened? How did you deal with that, and you know, what got you through that period to keep you going forward? You know, it was really taking one step at a time, and I didn't know, for the first time in my life, really, I didn't know what I would do next, but I just focused on the moment and what I was doing at the time, and I had been running marathons, and I had started to do yoga, and so I had started to get a little bit into the whole concept of mindfulness and presence, and started to learn about this concept of thriving and living life intentionally, and started to wonder, you know, what else is out there? I had actually always naturally been better at English, writing, meaning making, things like that than the sciences. I mean, I did really well in science and math, but I had to work a lot harder at it. What came more naturally to me was working with people and finding meaning in things. And I started taking some leadership classes. I mean, I had also always been a big fan of leadership, even from ROTC days, and all of my life I've been fascinated by teams and team dynamics. So I was taking leadership classes. Eventually I realized, wow, I want to be the person at the front of the room teaching these classes.
Right.
They're just always so inspiring. And I came to a big decision point in whether to continue on in my active duty Air Force career or to leave and go do something different, which I didn't know what it would be, but it was, at that point, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. I knew that I didn't know what I would be doing, but I knew it would be different than what I was doing, and in fulfilling, I think, a calling that I felt in my soul that I knew there was more out there for me. There was something bigger out there for me.
Were you always curious, always sort of like a go-getter, always somebody who wanted to find out more and how things worked and what made things tick?
I think so, yes. I definitely always curious about things, pushing the envelope, I guess, you know, and leaping into things and seeing, oh, what'll happen, you know? And of course I sometimes felt like, you know, is somebody watching, you know, am I doing it right? I definitely had some of that pressure that I had to do things right. And I think that we all maybe get conditioned by that, feeling that there's an answer in the back of the book.
Yes.
So one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life is that there are no answers in the back of the book, not like in school.
Nope.
And it's really about experimenting, leaping forth and trying something and seeing where it takes you one step at a time. So,
you know, speaking of leaping forth, now just for the viewers, she does have her shoes on now, but she is called the Barefoot Dancing Rocket Scientist. Tell us about that.
Yes, absolutely. That's a fun one. It actually, the Barefoot Dancing Rocket Scientist emerged from things that I did. So as I started running marathons, I actually discovered that I discovered the world of barefoot running and minimalist running, and that really called to me. It was really a way to get in touch with the earth, a way to ground just your body in addition to your spirit and your soul. So I had started running barefoot, and then I also used to dance a lot. So I would do swing and country dance and the social dancing in my kind of early 20s. And so I loved the dance side of it. And then I also earned a PhD in astronautical engineering. So I actually am a rocket scientist. And so those things were things that I did, but now they're actually all incorporated and integrated into my way of being. So as I was talking about barefoot, being barefoot for me is all about grounding and being connected to the earth, being connected to our inner wisdom and the universe as a whole and inspiration. Connection is really about timing and signals, dancing is about connection. So, you know, when you're actually dancing with a partner, the connection is important for sensing the signals and the timing, sensing when to turn and when to, you know, do the different pieces. And if you think about it, the universe is kind of our cosmic dance partner in our lives.
Right.
So always presenting inspiration, presenting opportunities. So it's up to us to take advantage of the signals and the timing, notice them. And so there's that whole connection piece of the dancing. So it's like a daily dance with the universe is my dance now. And then rocket science to me is actually all about resilience. And it doesn't sound like it, you know, we think, oh, let's send something to Mars or send something to the moon. But in essence, rocket science to me is about letting go to lift off. It's about acknowledging progress and adjusting course. And it's about going from where you are to where you want to be. That's really what rocket science is about. And to me, that's what resilience is about too, which I define resilience as our access to our own inner power, no matter what circumstances we face.
Would you say you were always resilient, or that developed over time as you have wisdom and experience that you're building upon?
I think I have always been resilient. I've certainly learned a lot more about it. I think I'll say I've become more consciously resilient.
Right.
It was maybe a little bit more intuitive, you know,
just
in the
automatic
past.
pilot, it was just happening, but now you're aware of it.
Exactly.
You can make it work for you.
And I also have had a life partner. I have a twin sister, an identical twin sister. So we were always kind of each other's buddies and backed each other up. And
similar personalities or distinctly different?
we are actually, it's funny, we are distinctly different. But in the sea of humanity, we're a lot more alike than probably any necessarily other two random people. I mean, we think we're really different, and then one person who knows one of us will meet the other one and completely freak out. Like, we have the same mannerisms and we speak the same and we have a lot of similar ideas about things. So we have diverged, our paths have diverged greatly, but we do have some very intrinsic things in common. So
that's fantastic.
It's a lot of fun.
You know, one of the things that you did, which is incredible, and you wrote this fabulous book, which we'll talk about in just a minute, is this marathon, running this marathon on 7 continents. What led up to that, and what inspired that? And that had to be one of the greatest things in your life. Tell us about that.
It was definitely an adventure, and it was inspired. It was, marathon was not on my bucket list. Never really considered myself much of a runner or much of an athlete. I was, my only official stint with running was 7th grade track team, and I ran hurdles. And actually, in one track meet, the runner next to me tripped and fell over her hurdle, and I stopped to ask if she was okay.
Right.
So
that's the empathetic side, right?
Yes. Yes, that was definitely the empathetic side. So competitive running, not my thing. So once I joined ROTC and then was in the Air Force, I ran a lot more because you have a fitness test.
Yes.
You do that. We ran a lot together.
Right.
And actually, one of my friends in my first Air Force assignment in Albuquerque was a really good athlete, really good runner, and she would take me on longer and longer runs. I remember my first 8-mile run with her. My legs were so wobbly the next day going downstairs.
Yes.
It was a new experience. And I was telling my mom about my sort of running experiences, and she said, there's a marathon in Big Sur, California, which is a beautiful place in the world, and one of my favorite places. Our family had spent time there when I was growing up, so it was sort of like a second home. And the chance to run in Big Sur, I thought, well, gosh, I could do that. It was September, the race was in April, and I thought surely I could train for a marathon in that amount of time. And so I did. And so I trained for the marathon, and it was actually at the Race Expo where there was a booth for the 7 Continents Club, and who were all about running marathons on all 7 continents.
Had you heard of them before?
I had never heard of them before.
This was all new.
It was all new, picked up a brochure and thought, let's do it. Why not?
Let's do it, right, yeah.
So that was that.
So, but when you heard that it was 7 continents, did that seem daunting to you, or?
It was a little daunting, and honestly, Antarctica was daunting. I thought, how does one run a marathon in Antarctica? But that was also, I think, part of the allure was like, wow, this is one of the hardest things you could probably do and the most adventurous. And it just seemed, it was one of these things, I got this idea in my head and just, I couldn't not do it at that point. It just seemed there was just such a why not quality and a soul calling. It sounds, maybe that sounds a little weird, but it truly was meant to be. I was definitely meant to do it, and I really never looked back. Something
was calling on you and pushing you forward to do this. Because part of it was not just only seeing the beautiful vistas and visualizations of these continents, but it was also a challenge for yourself.
It was.
How did that? What happened from doing that for you personally?
During the process, I think I didn't really realize what was happening. It was definitely in retrospect, I finished my last one of the 7 continents in 2012. So I ran one more marathon in 2015. I have not actually run a marathon since 2015. But the process was, I discovered in retrospect when I looked back that the marathon journey that I took actually paralleled the progress of my life. I started, the very first one I ran was Big Sur. I ended up running it twice because the first year I ran it, I was living in Albuquerque, and then the next year I was actually stationed in Monterey at the Naval Postgraduate School, and so it's right next door to Big Sur. So I actually got to train on the course. I was like, why not run it again? So I, with much better training, more experience on the course, I actually cut an hour off my time from the first year to the second year. And
did you really?
I'm not fast in the first place. So yes, I did run an hour. So my best time was that second Big Sur, my best marathon time. So that first sort of phase was all about hard work and determination and discipline. And as the marathons evolved, and for instance, as I got into barefoot running and learning to live a little bit more natural lifestyle while I was learning to run more naturally and get into the whole mindfulness yoga thing, by the time I got to the last 2 marathons, the last 2 were actually right after I had learned about the astronaut rejection. So I found myself in this not knowing what to do with my life, actually about 6 weeks before I went to Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as it's called by the indigenous population. That's where the big giant head statues are. And there's actually their full bodies, are not just heads.
Yeah.
But the island is kind of all about mystery and what in the world happened here. How is this possible? And I found myself at a place where I was facing mystery, the unknown. I had no idea what was coming next. So I see a lot of symbolism in the fact that was the first marathon I ran after this dark night of the soul, as it were, and also the concept of Easter, whether you're religious or not, is about transformation from death into life. It's about, and I was experiencing a death of the status quo, as it were. So for me, it was super transformative. And then 6 months or 5 months later, I ran my final continent, Australia, and it was in Port Douglas in conjunction with a total solar eclipse. So
wow.
That was pretty amazing.
What a place to be for that too.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was gorgeous. And eclipses are all about alignment. Sun, moon, earth, all completely aligned. And I was at a place in my life where I had, through running the marathons, I think I had become a more aligned version of myself. And the other piece of that was faith. I had a bit of a crisis of faith, and yet the craziest thing about the solar eclipse, I don't know if you've ever seen a total solar eclipse,
yes.
What surprised me the most.
I was in Nevada when I saw it, actually, on
amazing.
a TV shoot in Pahrump, Nevada.
That's amazing.
In the Death Valley area. What a place to see it.
Absolutely.
There was nothing obstructing anything.
Right. That's beautiful. Yeah, the thing that surprised me the most was that how little sliver of the sun it took to light up the world again after the darkness. It was so tiny. It was just a tiny little sliver,
just
and like daytime again.
It's a magical thing, really, isn't it?
Truly.
So how did the progression of the marathons sort of parallel the progression of your life?
Yeah. So it really was that journey from hard work and discipline to through the sort of more natural evolution, and then leaping into the mystery, leaping into the unknown, and then being in that place of alignment and faith. For me, it was really having the faith, not just that the sun would light up the world, but just the light within ourselves. A tiny sliver of light is enough to transform the darkness. And for me in my life, not knowing what I was going to do next, that was a beautiful place to be in, as far as opening a portal to the next phase and embracing the mystery and seeing what would happen.
You mentioned moments ago it was sort of the end of the status quo for you. Let's dig into that a little bit deeper. Do you think you were living life based on the status quo, what was expected of you, what you expected of yourself, what was normalized, whatever it may be, and you always desired more? Tell us about that, because you take big dreamers from their status quo to the extraordinary.
Yes.
But for you, that was a pivotal moment where the status quo was just not good enough.
Or it was disrupted, really, yeah. So for me, I actually felt like my status quo was pretty good.
Yeah.
And that can be true for a lot of people. But there was, I think, something missing. And I'll say that. So that was 2012 was kind of a big year, because it was when I got rejected from the astronaut program. It was when I finished the marathons. There were several members of my family who were having health crises. I actually had one grandfather pass away, another one get West Nile virus, and my mom and my grandmother were having some health issues that year. So everything was turned upside down.
All at the same time.
Yes. So I think as far as the status quo, I was on this fast track, and it was expected, and I did expect it of myself, but I think I had not realized that maybe there was more and bigger out there for me. So I think what has actually happened is, as far as the astronaut dream, is realizing that in actual fact, being an astronaut wasn't my path. And I wouldn't trade a day of everything I did to get to that point.
Right.
But really, the universe was calling me to something much bigger. And so closing that door was one of the biggest gifts. In the moment, it's hard to see that when you're on the couch sobbing all night.
That was the dream since you were a little girl.
Right. But in retrospect, again, most beautiful gift, because it really did awaken me to my higher purpose in life, which is to inspire others to reach their dreams, and then to realize what the dream actually is.
Right.
So what I really ask people,
that changes.
It does, and it's also about what is the goal behind the goal.
Right.
So for me, when I really asked myself what I wanted in becoming an astronaut, I realized that it was about really the desire to inspire people to greatness, the way that astronauts had always inspired me, and it was about the fact that I had always known I had this intuitive sense of connection to the universe. And so I think when I was in 5th grade, that sort of translated into something tangible, like be an astronaut, but you don't really think about cosmic connection per se when you're in 5th grade. So really that real dream I can fulfill in any number of ways. We're doing that right here, right? And it doesn't take being an astronaut to do that. So it took me some time to realize, but that's how you go from status quo to extraordinary, is really realizing what's the real calling and what is the path that is most aligned to get there, if that makes sense.
You're a quantum human design specialist. It sounds incredible. Tell us what it is.
So quantum human design is actually a synthesis of ancient wisdom and modern science. It incorporates elements of the Hindu chakras, the Chinese I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese wisdom tradition, Eastern and Western astrology, the Hebrew Kabbalah, also epigenetics and quantum physics, kind of integrates all of these elements together to actually give you a blueprint, like an energy blueprint of your design. And it's a collection of archetypes and themes of the human story that you really, the kind of energies that you're here to learn about, the kind of energies you radiate into the world, what kinds you absorb and kind of amplify from others. And so it's really one of the best tools that I've found to really illuminate what you're here for and who you are. Because we put so much pressure on ourselves, and I think society puts so much pressure on us to check all the boxes, do
constantly.
The corner office and the fancy car and the white picket fence and all these things we're supposed to want. And either you get there and then you realize you're not happy, or you don't get there and you compare yourself to everyone else debilitatingly.
Right.
And so human design really helps you understand more on an energetic level that it's really about who you are. It's not about what you do. And that's one of my biggest passions, is helping people realize that their life purpose is about who they are and who they're being. It's not about what they're doing.
So what did you discover as far as your design through all of this study?
I actually have learned that I take in other people's energy and amplify it in quite a big way. So
that's what I do. Yes. That's what I do.
Yeah. So I think what I've learned that I'm actually really good at is reflecting people's greatness back to them. A lot of people come to me and they're really amazing people, but they're either being really hard on themselves or they feel stuck. And for me, it's one of the easiest things in the world to celebrate someone for all the amazing things they've done. Where they're like, "Oh, I mean, that was easy. That was easy for me to do." I'm like, "But it's not actually easy for other people to do." And once they do something, they check it off as, "Oh, well, that wasn't that hard because I was able to do it." Like, no, that was amazing.
Right.
So that energy, being able to sense someone else's energy and show them their greatness, reflect that back to them, is really fun.
Really, it's fantastic. You're also an energy leadership index master practitioner.
Yes. Mouthful, right?
I'm glad I was able to say that. Tell us about that. That sounds fascinating too.
Yes. So I love energy, as you might have noticed. And so it's interesting. These two modalities, for lack of a better word, are not created together. They don't necessarily, they're not created by the same groups of people or whatever, but I use them in tandem because energy leadership is a way of understanding your energy from basically a 7-level perspective. So it ranges from sort of energy where we're feeling being like a victim of circumstance to creation energy. Like we are all clicking on all thrusters and able to create whatever we want in any moment. And at any moment in time, we are expressing a combination of all of those energies. Where I bring in human design is for all the human design archetypal energies, there's sort of lower expressions and higher expressions, and energy leadership kind of puts practical language to the spectrum in between, and you learn that you can actually shift your energy at will. So if you find yourself sort of reacting by default and going into victim mode, now we know that there's all these other levels to choose from and mindsets kind of at each energy that we can inhabit and actually embrace that maybe win-win energy or compassion or the more like visionary and creation energy. So how do we shift ourselves consciously into those other energies to create more choices, more range of opportunities, more ability to respond versus react to our circumstances?
So your clients, when your clients reach out to you, what are some of the things that they're experiencing, going through, maybe frustrated by, or when they share their hopes, dreams, and desires? Who are your clients, or are they not one size fits all? It's a cross section of everybody.
Well, so my clients are typically really big dreamers and high achievers, and I do want to just do a quick demonstration back on you for what I do. So let me just ask you, what are 5 to 10 things that light you up?
Conversations, really good, deep, poignant conversations that are not scripted, that are ad-lib, that go in a variety of different directions, where the person that I'm chatting with is opening up about their life, and they're expressing, because I've created a safe zone for them. I've created this essence of trust. And then I find different things to thread in my own life to what they're saying. When I have conversations like that with people, and they can go on for a couple of hours, I'm refreshed, I'm rebooted, I'm energized. I've learned something about how they handle things and how they decide to do things, and I'll pick up nuances of that for myself. And I'll have expressed some of the things about me that maybe connect with them, that they can resonate with as well. So definitely that would be one. Time with family is big for me. One of my favorite days is Christmas Day, and I think it's because it taps into every sense possible. There is the food, gifts, love, music, decorations, color, TV specials, Christmas Broadway shows. There's family and relatives and childhood and history and God, and all of it is happening all at the same time. So it's like a build up to this fantastic day that means a lot, and yet it's colorful, it's vibrant, there's love, there's all these things. And for me, that has always been a big day for me. I actually like Christmas Day more than my own birthday, because it's familial and communal.
Right.
Birthday's about me. I've never been about me. I'm about we.
Right.
I've even been accused by colleagues and others saying, gee, that was not, you won that award. We weren't involved. You keep saying we, but it was really I. So I've had to learn to say I at times when it really was I. I would say I also love off the beaten path travel. My family will tell you that when they get in the car with me, sometimes, especially family when they're visiting, from out of town, relatives, parents, all, they say when you get in the car with Jim, that who knows where we're going to end up. So we will end up driving through New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island, sometimes all on the same day. And nothing is planned, because they'll be saying in the car, where are we going? I'm like, wherever the car takes us. We'll put on some instrumental music, and it's communal, everybody's in the car together, and we end up stopping off at places, little cafe here, a little place that's a visually stunning, place to take photos or whatever. And we'll come back, and again, it's another one of those situations where it wasn't structured, it wasn't planned, because I work in an industry where everything is structured and planned, and we strive for excellence constantly. This is just let your hair out, down, and let's go, and wherever we go, we go. So that would be, so that's 3 big things.
Well, you mentioned a few other things through there too.
There are things that are wrapped in that.
Clothes, all
and
the
music
love
to me is big.
and
Music is very, for me, music is healing. I have a lot of music. I collect it. I play it. It's always on. I love it. Filling the home, bouncing off the walls versus having it shoved into my ear with a little, earphone or something. I really like when music is filling the air. And so music is powerful for me. I don't smoke, but I say music is my cigarette. So that would be something as well that's very, and I like creating scenarios where it brings joy to other people, whatever it is. I don't have to be the life of the party, but I do love hosting it. I do love making sure, not just that everybody's, drink glasses are filled, but that the atmosphere that's created is impactful. I have this real desire to lift others up and impact them in a very deep way. Not just have it always be so I'm not really a super transactional person.
Sure.
Though I know that's part of what we need to do. I like my transactions to have meaning and depth to them.
I think probably most people would if they thought, I think some people maybe don't think it's possible,
right.
Like they think it's not normal or they've never experienced that.
Exactly.
So.
Now, are these answers more than you expected? Or?
No, it's great.
Well, you kind of knew this already, didn't you?
Yeah.
After the radio show.
Yes, after, I could tell a bit of this about you, yes, for sure. So if all of that kind of was rolled into a light bulb, what wattage would it be at? Or if you don't have to give me a number, you can say low, medium, high. How's it feeling for you?
High.
High, yeah.
Those are high. Yeah,
awesome.
Those are high.
Awesome.
Those are important. Those are look forward to. Those are some of the things that I am also a very reflective person. So I like to, when I do something or involved in something, I absolutely love reflecting on it. At least having a few, we're in a society where everything is now, next. There's no time to reflect. There's no time to feel. It's just do it. And my mind, body, and spirit still demands of me and requires that I reflect. I savor it. I taste it. And I tweak it if I need to as well from whatever the experience was. Oh, maybe that wasn't so great, so let's tweak it next time. So I love having the reflective sort of part of me exposed, shared, reflected upon others. And so that's really, really important. And I think all of this sort of comes together where it's all important. For me to do the hard work, the labor, the blood, sweat, and tears, grinding like I do, working hard in the industry and everything else, running around 24/7, I need to have all that other stuff I just listed to balance it. I'm not just about, go 24/7 and just keep going. Well, what are we going for? There has to be something. We just went.
Yes.
You just did 7 continents. Let's write a book about it. Let's relive it. Let's experience it. Let's share it with the world. I require that.
Yeah, beautiful. So
thank you.
That's what I love helping people with, is actually that remembering why they're doing what they're doing and really taking that, even if it's high already, how do we make it higher? How do we kick it up even more and basically let you shine your light even brighter.
Right.
So again, so my clients, people who come to me, are the big dreamers and high achievers who they're really motivated. They've done a lot of really amazing things. Maybe they have a dream that they feel like might be too wild and crazy, or maybe the world says it's impossible. Maybe they've had a door shut in their face and maybe they're afraid to dream big again. Obviously that resonates with my astronaut experience. Or they've kind of achieved all the goals they set for themselves maybe sooner than they expected, and now they're ready to plan for phase 2 or phase 3. And so they come to me really for permission to live their big dreams and to be who they really are. And they don't actually say that. They don't come and say, hey, I need permission.
That's specific,
because I think they don't consciously think about it on that level, but they come for help with a resume, or they come because they're tired of identifying themselves as just as someone's spouse or someone's mom or dad, or because they're so busy solving other people's problems they don't have time for their own work, or because they're feeling pressure to take this amazing job, except the only thing is they don't want that job. So
right, exactly.
Right.
I had a friend who he has since passed, unfortunately, but he was always creating things. He was very entrepreneurial. He would write screenplays, he would build things, create things, and in his basement were all of these inventions, which were incredible inventions. He was a genius, very intelligent person, but they were always about 90% finished, and then he would stop and go to the next thing, or just something would stop him. And I remember one time he wrote this brilliant screenplay, which could have turned into a movie, but he put it in the drawer in his desk and never did anything with it. So he had the big dream, but he expressed a couple of times he feared rejection. He just didn't think of himself. He was a big dreamer. He knew he was a big dreamer, but he didn't think of himself as, I think, good enough to match the ones that are already successful.
Right.
And what he wrote in that screenplay came out 2 years later as a movie, but it wasn't his. Somebody else dreamed it,
Absolutely.
and they went forward with it. And we had a conversation once that went till 5 in the morning, and you'll probably tap into this. And it was we were in our early 20s. It was great. One of those back and forth like tennis match, great conversation. And the conversation was about success. When you're in your 20s, you're going towards that. And he said something that sort of resonated with me. I got what he was saying. He feared success. Well, he feared it in the way of not just you don't want to be successful. Of course you do. Everybody wants to, however they define it too, because it's different definitions for everybody. But he brought up the fact that what his fear was that if he reached the pinnacle of success and it didn't match what his dream of it would be, it was empty, it was nothing like all the blood, sweat, and tears to get there. You know how they always say the journey sometimes is more exciting than when you finally get what you get. And he feared that if he reached the top of the mountain, it might be empty. It might be, okay, that's that. Because most people, when I tell them that story, they'll say, oh yeah, he probably feared what goes up comes down. And I'll say, no, that wasn't what it was. He feared that when you got to the top of that mountain, there's nothing, all this dream and hope and the astronaut, you know, the dream, the hope, this is it. So
Not
like
what you
that.
expected, yeah.
And then, you know, the other thing which really made sense to me is what if you do get to the top of the mountain in terms of what you set up your mountain to be, and you've reached the pinnacle. So what's next?
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
empty. Like there's no more pinnacle because you've already reached the pinnacle. How do you create another pinnacle? So that was a fascinating conversation that I still refer to these years later.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, Jim, for sharing that. That's beautiful, and that's what I would want to help someone with, is so that they're sure that when they get to the pinnacle, first of all, they've gotten there in such an aligned way that every step of the way felt like the pinnacle. Like you said, like the journey is the destination.
Right.
So the pinnacle is not more exciting than the journey itself, just because everything was fulfilling. And then if you can savor just the moment and the everyday, you don't have to fear the pinnacle because it's just as amazing as everything else. And then the amazingness continues. You know, whether it's the view or the climbing the next mountain or whatever it is that's next, there's no letdown, because you're just in the joy of life, as it were. So that is what I help people do. And you mentioned success, and I want to share a little success thing too, because I also redefined my definition of success. And I do believe that everyone has the capacity to define it for themselves rather than have it handed to them by society.
Right.
But I used to sort of think that success was being an astronaut. And I actually had a friend reflect to me when I was sort of in it and all teary-eyed and you know, back then, one of my friends reflected. He said that the reason that people tell you they can see you being an astronaut is because they see something so great and wonderful within you that no dream seems beyond you. And I took that, and what I realized was, wow, success isn't being an astronaut. Success is being the person for whom no dream is impossible. So
I like that.
Yes. So that when you can be in that state of being, the journey itself, again, is the process, and you don't have to fear the pinnacle, because every part of it is amazing.
What about somebody who is a big dreamer, and I'm sure you have clients that express this too as well. They're a big dreamer, but they've constantly put their dreams on hold to make sure everybody else gets what they want in their dream. They're always caring for everybody else. They're always stopping their world. They're not doing the 7 continents because they're helping everybody else do the 7 continents.
Yes.
How about that?
Yes, and this is actually usually the thing that comes out. This is where actually permission comes in, because, you know, at the end of the day, I can't give anyone permission to do what their heart calls them to do. But at the start of the day, before they believe that they can give it to themselves, I'm happy to give it to them. I'm permissive, as it were. Like, I'll absolutely run with it. So you get off your butt and stop procrastinating, as it were, because what really does happen, I do end up with a lot of people who are trying to give from an empty cup. They have given and given and given because they've been conditioned and trained from a young age, and we were talking about this a little earlier, but that you have to take care of everyone first and that you think of yourself last. But what that ends up happening, what that does to us is that we then try to give from a depleted place. And you mentioned the oxygen mask earlier when we were talking, and I use this analogy all the time, that the flight attendants always say, put your oxygen mask on first before helping the next person. And
I would cringe when I would hear that. Yeah.
Right, like it sounds selfish at first, but the thing is, if you're dead or passed out, you can't help anybody. So that's, I think we're also kind of experiencing this crisis of over caring, as it were, and giving from empty cups instead of filling our cups so that we have more to give. So what I really help my clients with is giving them the permission and helping them give themselves the permission to prioritize their dreams and shift their perspective from, oh my gosh, I have to think of myself last, to actually putting my dreams first is in the highest service of humanity. And that's a paradigm shift that I think there's a growing movement of people that are recognizing that, but it's not the main narrative of our society. So it is, no kidding, in the highest service of humanity for you to focus on you and do you first, so that you bring all of your creative gifts to the world. We have a lot of problems going on in the world, and really, if everyone was bringing their full creative potential to the table, we'd be able to solve them.
Exactly. You said that you were not an astronaut per se, but have you looked at your life and the way that you experience life in such a deep, rich way, and you share that, you pay that forward, that in a way, because astronauts, they go explore and they gather information and they go to places that none of us usually get a chance to go, and they go there first, and then they bring it back home and they show us what they discovered. That in a way you are like an astronaut, but in packaged in a different way. Yes,
like a spiritual astronaut.
Yes, see?
Yes, no, I love that. I have thought about that, and I've thought, I really am, no kidding, living the dream. And with the spiritual connection, with the spiritual exploration, I do feel like, and I got to do really amazing things along the way. So I really feel blessed to have experienced the best of all worlds.
One of which, again, is that marathon. You were telling us about, having the opportunity to come across the group that does the 7 continents. What was that training like for you to get prepared to do that? And was it all 7 continents, one after the other, or were there pauses in between? How does that work?
Yes, so I coordinated my trips with ones that both sounded exciting and unique, and also that I had leave for in my calendar, that were timed where I could take time off work. And so for me, it took 5 years. From my second big cert to finishing in Australia, it took 5 years. And what I tried to do was kind of load up sometimes. So like Africa and the Great Wall in China, I did about 6 weeks apart, so I could take advantage of training once and running 2 marathons. Right? So it was intense training, and I am not fast. So training is kind of a very involved, it would take my whole Saturday, doing my long run. So I'm also a run walker. So I had a GPS watch where I would set it for a timer. I would run for 5 minutes and then walk for a minute. No pride about not walking during a marathon. I knew I would be doing some walking. And actually, Jeff Galloway is a runner. He was an Olympian that I look up to, and who's written lots of books about marathons. And I kind of followed his marathon training plans.
Was there a lot of climbing too? I mean, obviously, even the Great Wall of China itself is. Antarctica?
Yes. So Antarctica was actually really muddy. It was really muddy and rocky and rainy. So it was pretty intense. The climbing, definitely the Great Wall was the hardest one for me in a lot of different ways, but was also the most amazing as far as humans and the human spirit and compassion coming to the aid of the person who was struggling like me. And then, so I'll get back to that story in a second. But the hill-wise, there was the hardest hill probably in the last one in Australia. And so I actually focused all of my training for Australia on hill training. And I didn't care how I did in the whole marathon. I just wanted to run well on the super steep hill that we had. So I trained at a national park nearby, and I would find the steepest hills and run up and down them several times in a row. And so really for me, it was all about kind of planning the long runs on the weekends, doing some shorter runs during the week, and just because I am all about being able to walk the next day. So I'm not trying to break any records.
Did you have a support system around you, people that were believing in you, the family, the friends saying, you got this, go girl, you can do it, kind of thing? Did you have that rah, rah, rah around you? Because everybody needs those, because especially when you're doing something like this that's so physically and mentally demanding, you have moments sometimes where you doubt yourself or you're physically worn out, mentally worn out, and you're like, I don't know, am I going to really be able to do it? Is this something they're going to be able to achieve? And then that support system comes and says, come on, this is, keep going forward.
Yeah, I did. I was very blessed. Everybody was supportive of it. Actually, when I was training for my first marathon and when I was in Albuquerque, by the time I got up to 18 miles, I lived 18 miles from work. So I would actually, a friend would take me home from work one day, and then I would run into work the next day. Wow. So, and there, as I was running to work, my coworkers would be passing by, and they were actually honking and cheering, so that was a lot of fun.
Wow.
And then there were a couple, I trained with other people for some of them, but I actually sometimes refer to myself as an antisocial runner because I love being in nature. I love, I don't listen to music when I run. I don't have earbuds or anything like that. I just listen to the sounds of nature, focus on my breathing. Right. So I sort of coordinate. I breathe in for this many steps and breathe out for that many steps and kind of get into a zone, like a meditative zone. And so, yes, but I definitely had the support system cheering me on, and it was amazing. Actually.
Do you apply those breathing techniques when you are in heavy rush hour traffic?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Does it apply elsewhere in your life?
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially when I started learning yoga, actually, when they would take us through exercises, they said a lot. What you learn on the mat, you take out into the world. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And absolutely, I became calmer in rush hour traffic and able to just be with it. And I hate traffic though.
You're in the not far from the DC area.
The DC area,
right?
yes. So most of the time I work from home, which is a huge blessing. But so the traffic is not so much fun, but I have learned to, just to focus on breathing and also to just, again, be mindful, be in the experience. And I'm also blessed most of the time when I have to go anywhere long distance. My husband will drive, so I can just be the passenger.
Right,
so
exactly.
That's nice.
Yes.
But traffic is a huge one, and I actually reflect on that a lot, how much time and energy and human potential is actually wasted in traffic. I feel like
it is. You know what's happened to me lately in the recent years? I prefer to be the driver. I don't know why. Than the passenger. Most people like to be the passenger. You do all, you go. Even when we drive from up north here all the way to Florida, I like to be the driver. I don't know why. I just always feel like I can get us out of situations and react quickly. And I'm very conscious of everything that's around me, which I am usually anyway.
Right.
So always conscious and just, I don't know what it is about, I'll drive.
Well, I'm grateful that it takes all kinds, right? Like, it's good to have people like you so that I can chill out and relax.
So you can chill out and relax. That leads me to this incredible book that you penned. This is absolutely amazing. It's heavy, it's thick. But it's really incredible. You spared no expense. Running the World, Marathon Memoirs from the 7 Continents. And there you are, Melissa, really incredible. Obviously, you've pretty much answered this already as far as what's the inspiration to write the book, but tell us about why you needed to not only write it, but you also, the photography in here is absolutely incredible. You did the photography as much, some of this is absolutely breathtaking. I want to make sure we can show some of this here. Look at that. And we don't want to get any glare from the lights, but look at that. And that's just one. Where was this?
That was in China, in Beijing.
Absolutely beautiful. It's just one of many. Tell us about what the process was like writing this extraordinary book.
Well, this is not the book I set out to write.
Right.
In fact, I wanted to write a book about leadership, and I was struggling a bit because I felt like everyone has written a book about leadership, and I didn't know what I was going to add that was unique. And I was in one particular moment, and I had been reflecting. Some coaches had asked questions like, "What do you already have?" And I found myself in this another moment of what am I doing with my life? And I did not. I would say, since then, I've sort of learned to harness the power of the universe, asking for guidance and receiving inspiration. But in that moment, I sort of did it unconsciously. I just thought to myself, what am I doing? What am I here for? What do I already have? And about 10 minutes later, I was journaling about something completely different. And this idea just popped in, coffee table book.
Yeah.
And this was actually 2019. And I thought, oh my gosh, of course. I mean, I already have my pictures, and I had made online photo albums from all my runs, and actually people had said, hey, if that whole science thing doesn't work out, at least you have a backup plan. You have a great eye for photography. All these comments.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I should have listened to those 10 years ago.
Yes, what I know now, I wish I knew then.
Yeah, but it's taken every step of the journey. It was perfect timing. So I knew I had my stories, and so it was really actually the idea to create the book that then led me to reflect and really see all those patterns that we talked about, like the parallel progression of life and marathons. Yeah. I learned that about myself through writing the book, really. So it was what I already had. It was unique. It was me, and it was a beautiful co-creation. It really created itself through me with the universe. Every time I came to a decision point or what do I do here, just things fell into place, and ideas and inspiration came, and I would sit down to write, and it would come out, and I actually started to ask for inspiration. Let me share the message that most wants to be shared, or that would most be of service to humanity here, and it came through, and it was really beautiful. And it actually turned out to be the leadership book I wanted to write in the first place, because it's really and truly about the journey toward living a more authentic life and running your world, and all leadership really starts with leadership of the self. So it was everything. It was everything.
It's extraordinary, yes, and it's so, again, beautifully laid out and richly done. What is it that you hope people are left with in reading this book? I
hope that people are left with the idea that they can achieve their dreams, that they can do anything really that do their work in the world. It's called running the world, but what it means to me is it's really about running your world. Yes. And recognizing running as a metaphor. You don't have to be a runner to actually enjoy the book. Right. It's really about life and achieving difficult things by breaking them down into manageable chunks and literally taking it one step at a time. So really the message that it's possible.
Yes, that's so important to
Absolutely.
hear over and over again, because sometimes we need that reassurance, right?
Yes.
Was this book cathartic and therapeutic for you as well?
100%, absolutely, yes.
In what ways?
In a lot of the self-exploration, the learning, the seeing the patterns. I mentioned earlier that I've always been maybe more naturally better at English than math and science, and I loved writing papers about Hamlet and all the books that we studied in school. And it was funny, writing this book was sort of like writing a paper about my life, and so using the analysis and seeing the patterns and seeing the epiphanies that took place, I just, again, learned so much about myself, learned so much about the world, learned about dreams and what we are really here for on this earth, that it was absolutely cathartic and healing. And honestly, I think creativity is healing for all of us, and it really starts with we create something for ourselves that then ends up being of service to humanity. And so our healing heals everyone else as well.
That's right, exactly. The response to this book has been extraordinary. Tell us about that.
Well, it's been really fun to see. Anyone who has picked it up and looked through it has said, wow, this is the most inspiring book I've ever read. The photography is amazing. So it has been a beautiful honor for me. And actually, it was just recently selected as a finalist for the Independent Book Publishers Association Benjamin Franklin Awards as well.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So it's been exciting for me to see the impact it has had on others. And I even have people who have little kids who love the book too. They're showing them all these parts of the world, and one of my friends, her little son calls it the big book. Yes. And they look through it and they enjoy the pictures. So there's something in it for everyone, really, and it's been really a blessing for me to see that it has that impact.
Was this your thought as far as the size of it, the thickness, the design, to have it something that it's prominent? It's something that would be on a coffee table that everybody would pick up and look through and read and enjoy and absorb. Is this the way it's laid out what you had hoped?
Absolutely, and more. I'll say I didn't expect it to be quite as thick, and I mean it's big, it's heavy, it has some weight. Yes,
solid.
I definitely imagine it as a coffee table book that would be on people's coffee tables. And my mom always loved coffee table books, and so I feel like I probably grew up with that. There were always coffee table books in the house, and so again, it sort of seemed like that natural avenue, especially because I love photography, and it's very heavy on the photos. I personally think the writing is very inspirational, and certainly readers have too. But even if you don't read a word, the photos are
they
a
tell
lot of
a
fun
story
too.
as well, which is really fantastic.
Yes.
You know, one of the things, I mean, and the cover of the book, even though it's running the world, the cover of the book also blends in beautifully to what you also do, which is help people celebrate their awesomeness.
Yes.
And it looks like, as you're at the top of this sort of mountain area here, and having done this and achieved this, you were celebrating your awesomeness as well, because it takes awesomeness to be able to pull off 7 continents as a marathon. Tell us about helping people celebrate their awesomeness, because sometimes they don't think they're awesome.
Right, absolutely. And I think that is when we were talking earlier about kind of reflecting people's greatness back to them, I think it's so important. Again, so when people kind of write themselves off as, if it's easy for me, it's easy for everybody.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest fallacies. People think that nothing they do is special, but everyone else has it figured out,
Right.
and that's a very sort of debilitating belief, and not giving yourself enough credit for, the thing that comes naturally to you is really hard for someone else. So
And sometimes we forget that.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, even working in companies, they would expect maybe that you're going to do it exactly the way they are, or what have you. And sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes you have a different vision, or there's different things you bring to the table. That's going to be beautiful.
Absolutely. Yes. And so it's really important that we don't project how we would do something onto everybody else, and let people bring their own gifts and talents to it. So reminding people that what they're doing and who they are really is awesome is one of my joys, so that they don't forget that, and they remember that them being awesome is one of their purposes in life, and not something to write off as, anybody could do that. Not anybody could do that. Only you can do that.
And don't suppress what somebody's expressing as well, because sometimes people do that all the time.
And I was just say that goes back to the whole prioritization thing. People who don't feel like they're allowed to focus on their own priorities because they have to take care of everyone else first.
Else's.
And part of that is when you do that, you actually deny the world your gifts and your awesomeness. And so it is so important to prioritize who you are and that self-care piece, so that you do have more to give and have yourself to give, not just being a cookie cutter human.
Right, or
so
cog in the wheel.
Right, exactly. To make other people feel somehow more comfortable, which is not the point.
Right, exactly. You're just there putting widgets in the box all day, and you have no voice, and people want to be heard and believed, and they want to be invited to the party.
Absolutely.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but what is your mission in life, and how do your superpowers sort of support that?
Yes. So my mission in life is to shine my light and inspire you to shine yours. And we were talking about light bulbs earlier, but we're way beyond light bulbs. We all have the creative power and potential of a universe of stars, and it's so important that we bring that to the table. So for me, the superpowers I've discovered that I have are shifting perspective, whether it's helping people. I try to help people shift their own perspective so they see things in a different way. I've always been able to ascribe meaning and purpose to even challenging events, but finding the beauty and the purpose in those, and turning something around. And allowing people to prioritize their self-care. Like I've had people say, wow, I've never had that thought in my whole life, but then they run with it because they sense the truth of it. So the shifting perspective, celebrating the awesomeness, so that they know that what they have to offer is wanted and desired and really needed by the world. And then reflecting the greatness back to them again, so that people really do know that they are intrinsically worthwhile, that they have something to give, so that they bring that power and potential of the entire universe to the table so that we can actually get on with solving the challenges of humanity.
It's obvious that you love this. You're very enthusiastic. You're very passionate about it, which I think is awesome. Talk about the awesomeness. It's something that really, you're turning red. That's a good thing. You're really passionate about it. It's something, you're living and breathing it. You have found your life's purpose, your calling. It's in your DNA. It's always been there, and you've tapped into aspects of it through your life. But now I think you've really, it's pinnacle situation for you as well.
Yes.
But you're appreciating and enjoying it and paying it forward, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yes, totally. It's a gift. Thank you.
What would be one thing that this is a meaty one? What would be one thing that you think would solve all the world's challenges? I mean, what would it be? I mean, is it more empathy, more love, more kindness? I mean, it's interesting because everybody's talking about that now. Oh, we need more empathy, we need more kindness, we need more love. I've always thought that way since I was a kid. That's
Absolutely.
not new for me. This whole new understanding and appreciation, even in leadership, effective leaders now understand that it isn't just about being the boss in the ivory tower looking down at everybody, you do this, you do this.
Right.
It's showing empathy and team and rolling up the sleeves, and we're all part of it. And if you have an issue, let me know. Maybe we can work together on it. Respect.
Yeah.
I always was aware of that and always strive for that since I was a kid, so it's not new to me.
Right.
But now that other people are sort of tapping into understanding that those simple things are what really make things tick. But I know those probably would help in aiding in solving some of our issues. But what would be the one thing? An appointment with you. That,
yes,
to me,
absolutely.
I think if you make an appointment with her, that will put you on the track of solving a lot of the problems.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good answer.
Yes, indeed. But all those things that you mentioned, absolutely. And I've also always felt like those were so necessary. And I'm happy to see more and more people jumping on the bandwagon. And I'll say for me, the one thing that underlies all of those is not just love, but self-love. And so really valuing yourself, and not in a narcissistic or arrogant pomposity kind of way. Like, those things are actually indicators of low self-worth. So it's really about loving who you are, and just the very fact that you exist makes you valuable and worthwhile. I think we have such a crisis of faith, a crisis of mental health, a crisis of human value, where people don't feel worthwhile. And so I think if every child learned from the moment they were born that they are loved and valuable because they exist, not because of anything they've done or anything they will do, but because they're a human being on this planet. And they raise their kids to believe that. I honestly think we wouldn't see people trying to take from their neighbors.
Yes,
I don't think we'd see bullying.
All the stuff we're seeing now, and it's
kids going into schools and shooting other kids.
Yeah.
That's a cry
people
for
pushing
help.
and shoving in supermarkets.
Of course,
Yeah,
right.
It's unbelievable. Road rage.
Yeah.
Everything is really heightened now.
It is.
Post-pandemic. How has that come into play? What have you witnessed? How have you been able to work with your clients through this unprecedented time of a global pandemic, which threw everybody off?
I think I also feel very fortunate again to have had that sort of dark night of the soul crisis of purpose with the whole astronaut thing. I've experienced my world turning upside down. And I think everyone in the world experienced their world turning upside down. For some people, it was really liberating. For some people, it was devastating. But I think everyone experienced their death of the status quo. So what I have been able to help people through is really, for a lot of on the big dreamer, high achiever side, people realizing, maybe I don't need to be tied to this job that doesn't appreciate my full talents. Or with the traffic thing, we actually saw the Earth kind of breathe a collective sigh of relief when people weren't going to work, and carbon emissions, went down, and
the water in Venice, Italy became blue again.
Right,
in the canals.
Right. I think we as a globe experienced a collective deep breath that was a wake-up call that I think is initiating us into a higher purpose, saying, let's pay attention to what's going on here, and maybe we don't go back to the same normal. We maybe think about, maybe there were some things that we don't want to bring back that we were doing before that maybe aren't as necessary, and not even were really not necessary, and in fact harmful. So I think it was a big pause that gave us an opportunity to say we can more consciously design our way forward. And so that was the benefit I saw in the pandemic, and that's what I hope as a globe we take away from it is, again, more capacity to consciously choose and transform how we approach the world going forward, and how we interact with our Mother Earth.
Exactly right. What is an initial session with you like? What's the process, and do you do like an assessment in advance? How does it work?
I do have some assessments I do for longer engagements, but honestly, for an initial session, what I typically do is 2 hours actually, and we'll just have a conversation, and I want to hear your big dreams. I want to hear your life story, and then we sort of explore what are some things you want to let go of, and what are, kind of like the pandemic, what have you always done because maybe you thought you were supposed to, that you don't necessarily have to. So really it's about shifting perspective, coming to some maybe ways of thinking and being that you haven't thought about before, receiving a celebration of your awesomeness, because again, someone's coming to me, I'm going to see a lot of amazingness in them that they perhaps take for granted or don't see the awesome side of it. They see anybody can do that. And so it's really about reflecting that back, and then all right, hey, do you want to turn up the wattage on the light bulb and really shine brighter, because we can do that.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I think sometimes they have that flame within, and then it's been flickering, and they need to reignite it and let it come. Because oftentimes so many of the answers to life's questions, as we know, are in here.
Absolutely.
Where we search for these other answers, but it comes from within here. But sometimes we need a voice like yours, somebody who's empathetic, somebody who listens, somebody who really cares, doesn't judge. There's a lot of judgment that's out there these days.
Yeah.
And these situations where people they become resistant, they sort of hold back because of the fact that they don't feel like they're being heard.
Right.
People want to be heard.
Right.
And you create that safe space for them to do that, because I would imagine that oftentimes they're going to wind up sharing things with you that they don't even share with their closest loved ones and friends, right?
They do, actually, and I've had people say that.
So you create that space for them.
Yeah.
Why do you love this work so much?
It lights me up, lighting you up is what lights me up. And I think that really seeing the aha moment on someone's face, or the pause when they see themselves differently for the first time in a long time, or see the hope that maybe I can focus on my priorities, and it's not selfish, it's actually responsible. It's the responsible thing to do, is take care of myself. That new awareness it sends that out into the world and creates a ripple effect. So it just warms my heart to warm someone else's heart and give them the hope that they always have inside. But so it's, again, I'm not giving them anything they don't have, but it's helping them see that it's always been there, and that they can bring it out into the world. And indeed, that is the most powerful and necessary and desirable thing they could be doing.
Do you do a lot of this work? Is it one-on-one? Is it groups? Is it teams?
I actually love the whole gamut. I do love the one-on-one for just that deep sense of connection. But I also do groups and group workshops. And a lot of times what people get out of group workshops, when I facilitate a workshop, I'm super interactive. Like, if it's virtual, I'm gonna have people in breakout rooms talking to each other, because it's not about me, it is about we. And it's about, what I've had people experience is, first of all, they learn they're not alone. They're talking about their issues and their story with another person who's listening, and they have so much in common. So really helping people see that they're not alone, and that they get to interact with other people who are wanting to make a difference in the world. It's really powerful. And then I also done work with teams where you get to where they can speak a common lexicon, they have a common language, common experience, where they can go back and take that back to their workplace and be better and listen to each other more, because they actually have a deeper understanding of what it means to have your energy show up like this, or have your energy show up like that. And it's not, I think a lot of times what people take away is, when we see someone behaving who is not behaving in a way we would expect, or behaving the way we think they should, we'll say that they're lazy or stupid or whatever, instead of actually they literally see this so differently that they have a different way of coming to it, a completely different approach. people start to understand that it's because it's just that person's energy or experiences, life experiences. We all have completely different life experiences.
Right.
We're having the same conversation, but we're having a completely different experience right now. And when people realize that, I think they do extend more of that compassion and empathy to other people rather than the immediate judgment that they would normally go in with.
The book, again, is really amazing. Congratulations on this. I just want to show it again. It's really something. A true labor of love, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It really is a labor of love, and it's definitely a coffee table book. And even the back is beautiful. Where was this shot taken?
That was from Easter Island, Rapa Nui. Those are the Moai.
Easter Island. What was your favorite of all the places? I mean, it's hard to say because you've been to so many places, and again, it's all, in the book there and rich with text and gorgeous photography that you are responsible for. But
thank you.
Was there a favorite place?
So it's a great question. For this question, I do get asked this a lot, and I have to say each one was my favorite for something different.
Yes, got something out of it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we can just run through them real quick. Big Sur was my favorite for just beautiful place in the world and my best training experience. I did my most disciplined training is where I had my personal best there. Athens was my favorite for historical significance. We actually ran from the town of Marathon to Athens, like the original marathon course. And the Great Wall was actually my favorite for camaraderie and people helping each other get across the finish line. There was actually someone in that race who ran with me for 21 miles because my GPS watch was dead. I had actually not run in 6 weeks, a whole nother story. And there was actually an Iron Woman triathlete who ran with me for 20. She was way better shape than I was, but she took me through the first 21 miles. And then I found someone else from my tour group later on who had given up, and I actually got him through the finish line. So nobody got through that race alone. So that was huge. That was huge for me. Let's see. Africa was my favorite for just natural landscape, being so close to the earth, and it was just so beautiful. Antarctica, breathtaking beauty and just awe of nature itself as well. And then let's see, Easter Island, favorite for mystery and just embracing the natural. I didn't run the whole marathon barefoot, but I ran parts of it barefoot, and I crossed the finish line barefoot, so that was exciting. And then Australia was the solar eclipse one again, my favorite for cosmic significance, and for just that opening the portal to the next phase of my life.
What was the toughest physically? Was it the Great Wall or Antarctica with the mud? Or
I think it probably was the Great Wall. That was certainly the longest. It took me the longest to finish. So it was, and because I hadn't run for 6 weeks, I had actually thought I had felt like I had a foot injury, and so I had not been running. We actually had to hike the sections of the wall 3 days before the race because it was so kind of treacherous.
Yeah.
And during the hike, actually, my foot somehow magically healed itself. So that was awesome. But I had not run for 6 weeks. So that was probably the hardest. There was an 8-hour time limit, and the guy that I was running with that we were able to finish together, we finished in 7 hours and 53 minutes. So that was tough. But we made it right under the wire.
The bottom line is you made it. Again, this is so inspirational. Your story is so inspirational, and you keep forging forward.
Thank you.
With passion and enthusiasm and paying it forward, which is what it's all about, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
This was amazing having you come to the television studio. Again, we did the radio shows, which I love, but having you here and actually getting a chance to see the book up close and personal and explore deeper and more about why you do what you do so well, Melissa. Hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you. This was a pleasure.
I appreciate it so much, Jim. And I just want to say one last thing, which is that, just for anyone who is out there wondering, what their purpose in life is, or what I would just say, you don't need to run a marathon on all 7 continents to have an epic life. You are already powerful, unique, and awesome. And you're here to make a difference, not by what you do, but by being you.
Absolutely. Well said. A pleasure. Thanks for coming
into
the studio.
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate your time.
Continued success and blessings and joy in your life, and I'm sure we'll have you back.
Thank you so much. And to you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
As you can see, Melissa loves what she does, and she takes big dreamers from status quo to extraordinary. If you'd like to learn more, visit this website, resilienceactually.com. For Close-Up Television and Radio, I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.